would recommend is to think of your text as a colouring book. So what I typically do is allocate certain colours to certain themes. So instead of highlighting absolutely everything in the text in pink, let's say for example, and then just finding that you just highlighted massive chunks of pink just absolutely everywhere, and then it's just getting too confusing because you can't tell which quote is which, or which character said which, or which quote fits into which theme. That's where colouring according to themes comes in. You could do it in an alternative way. You can colour according to characters, to particular events, but I just like to do it according to themes. So I'm going to show you my Brooklyn one, for example. You can see within the first few pages of the book that I've written down a list of themes and the corresponding colours with them. Sorry if my hands are shaky, and you can tell that my handwriting is not really on point because I wasn't really thinking of sharing this with anybody when I was reading this text. But you can see how I've got different colours and I've allocated certain themes to certain colours. And then if you flick through the book actually, you can see how I've highlighted different sections with different colours. And that's really handy for me because when I'm coming back to the text, I want to find a theme about love. And then basically I'll flick through the book and I'll only pinpoint the pink highlighters, and that's pretty much it. It makes it so much easier for you rather than to have a whole book just filled with pink, because how are you really going to differentiate anything from each other? Remember that annotating is for yourself, so you need to recognize what's going on. You need to help yourself out, girl. Oh boy. So think of it as a trail that you can use throughout the book, and think of the first page where you've got all the different highlighters as a legend. Second thing is that I would circle new vocabulary. So when you're reading text, it's so easy just to see a word that you don't really understand and then just skip over and go, oh yeah, whatever, I kind of get the gist of it. Because some of these words you'll be able to find that they come in so handy when it comes to your essays. So whenever I come across a word that I don't know, I'll circle it and then I'll make sure that I come back to it later and I look it up in the dictionary. And by circling it, it makes it really easy when I'm flicking through the book just to look for a circle. So you can see in the text Stasiland, I've actually circled this particular word, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce because it's a German word, and yeah, that's basically it. If you guys can pronounce it, then fantastic. So clearly this was a word I didn't know just because it wasn't in English, but that doesn't mean that you just have to stop at words that are in English that you don't know. If it's words written in other languages, or even if it's just like places that you're not really familiar with, even just looking them up and Googling where it is can really help, because I know that for a lot of students studying Stasiland especially, it's really confusing when it comes to the East Berliners and the West Berliners and then just Germany in general. So that's a really big step in Stasiland, especially to actually just know what's going on, where it's going on. Third thing is writing notes in the margins. Sometimes what you might want to do is just write a rough comment about what you're thinking in regards to a particular sentence, or maybe you just want to summarize what's going on in this particular passage so that as you're flicking through the book, you can just find it really easily throughout the margins of a text. And what do I mean by the margins of a text? So right now I'm looking at the book 1984, which is actually my favorite book of all time. It's the best book ever, and I would highly recommend you guys read this if you guys have time and finish VCE. The margins are basically the sides, so the empty gaps, right? So why not use them as note-taking areas? So what I wrote here was just something really short and snappy. So I wrote spying and subservience, and this is just, it's not even a proper sentence or anything like that, but you know what? It makes sense to me, and that's all that matters because I'm annotating this book for myself. I just wanted to make a quick summary of what was happening here, and I wanted to write down the word subservience because I thought it was an amazing word that I wanted to use in my essay. If you have a question, put a question mark next to your particular passage and then find out more about it later. It's as simple as that. Mark literary devices. So with literary devices, we know that it's symbols, imagery, metaphors, that type of thing. Highlight all of those because they're going to come in so handy for your essays, trust me. Don't just quote people speaking in a text. It's also about the way the author is describing a setting, for example, or describing a particular character. In Burial Rites, in the prologue, I've actually written a few things here. A little point here saying how it's ominous. The author uses a lot of natural imagery, and then I've written here how it's a metaphor. So yeah, guys, whatever it is, make sure you annotate it. Dog ear, your important passages. So dog ear sounds a little bit funny, but let me find an example for you guys. Okay, so I found The Complete Mouse, which is actually a graphic novel, which is amazing. So if any of you are actually studying this text and you're actually lucky enough to do this text, then oh my gosh, you're going to have the time of your life, because even though it's a very sad story and a very touching story, the illustrations really help. So this is what a dog ear is. It's basically when you flip in the side of a page inside, just so that when you've closed it, you can see that, you know, there's particularly important passages that you've got. And so I used it for this text just because I didn't want to highlight, you know, the whole image, but it's pretty much the same as if it was a text and you just didn't feel like highlighting the whole 2 pages worth of passages. Then you can just do that, and then that way you know it's a significant moment and you can always come back to it really easily. Otherwise, if you don't like dog tagging, then what you could do is just star the bottom of the pages like I do.